So my introduction has three parts. First, I am genuinely honored to be here. I have been here a couple times before, as someone has mentioned. I'm honored to be here because over the years, you have been faithful to the call to bring deep reflection and light to the darkened corners of religious life and theological inquiry. When I think of you as the bright light of consciousness reflecting off the buckle of the Bible belt. You are to be commended for your courage and your faithfulness. And let me assure you, I will take responsibility for what I will share today if you need political or religious cover. Secondly, in this church setting, it seems appropriate for me to update my religious testimony. The original version of my testimony was given about 65 years ago when I was age 12 at Macedonia Baptist Church in Kings Mountain, North Carolina. It was there that I was duly immersed in the baptismal waters, duly required to attend services at least 3 times a week, got lots of medals for perfect attendance. We were duly required to participate in biblical sword drills. You know what that is. Some of you know what that is. I won a lot of those. And where I delightfully sang from the Baptist hymnal. Tunes which still echo in the chambers of my soul. While many of the words in the theology are no longer helpful nor believable, the tunes have not been retired, nor have the memories of love and belonging that was the best of my conservative fundamentalist religious heritage. For the sake of transparency, I confess that I have been obsessed with God and religion all my remembered life, which will likely continue for my remaining days. My closest friends know of this obsession because I'm always talking about religion, often using psychological language, but I'm obsessed with it. Employing depth psychology, I have a God complex, which is an internalized, highly emotional, charged cluster of instincts, experiences, memories, body memories, images, information and misinformation, confusions and brief clarities, highlights and lowlights that have formed around a core psychic entity called an archetype, or universal human experience. In this case, around the experiences we have named God, along with thousands of other names. All of us have a God complex, and if we do not know that, the complex has us, and is the source of much of our suffering as a species. I've yet to find a medication or an antidote for this obsession with God and religion. I've tried a lot of things. I've tried the years of analysis with Freudians and Jungians. I've digested dozens, if not hundreds of books, like most of you probably, and years of dream work, but nothing has curbed the obsession. Maybe I'm a slow learner. So everything I will share today is really an update on that original testimony, growing out of my Jacob-like wrestling match with a whole host of angels and devils, and employing the language of religion and analytical psychology and modern science. Third, and final introductory remark, I am speaking, as Stuart said, as a Jungian psychoanalyst who has a lifelong passion for religion and spirituality. I am, so to speak, doing psychology, not theology. But more honestly, I begin with psychology and move into all other disciplines, including theology. It is my bias that all experience is psychological first, and then we name that something else. Psychological experience comes first, always. Now here's the major difference in theology and psychology as I know it, a difference that makes all the difference in what I'm about to propose. For centuries, monotheistic theologians, that is Jewish, Christian, and Islamic theologians, leaders, and teachers, have sought to understand the mind of God, with God being imaged as a supernatural being, residing outside the world in a metaphysical domain, who intervenes into the world he created, who selects a favorite religious tribe to be his chosen tribe, supplies them with sacred truths applicable to all people for all times. This is the image of God whose mind monotheistic theologians continue to try to discern. It's a worthy effort. Depth psychologists, however, particularly Jungians, have sought to understand the human mind and imagination through which all God images, all religions, all dogmas, all creeds have been birthed, and through which all future religious products are being birthed and will be. So for the psychologically minded, everything we know about the mysteries of the universe, including those mysteries we have named and given names and sacred significance to, has come through the human body, the mind, and imagination. In her long 13.8 billion year unfolding, the wisdom in nature herself has chosen the human psyche to be the midwife and the birthing canal for all knowledge, including knowledge about the mysteries we deem divine. Does this sound working okay? Sometimes I keep doing this and that, and I hear myself loud sometimes. If it gets annoying, raise your hand and I'll try to be still. It's going to be hard. So, reimagining God in religion. To dive into these deep and troubled waters, I decided to use more of my imagination to create a most urgent email. This most urgent email is from Wisdom Within the Universe, sent to the Anderson Forum for Progressive Theology, and the subject line reads, Notice of Change of Address and a Few Religious Reminders. Wisdom Within the Universe addressing us. Dear ones, I know that these are terrifying times for you, as they are for me. So I send this heartfelt message using the latest technology that your species has created. You have been very clever, and I applaud you for that. Keep it up. Yet you have been slower to access the deep wisdom available to you in order to use what you have created for your common good. We can do better, you and I. We must do better. Thus the purpose of this message from Wisdom. First, let me advise you of my new address. The notice of my new domain was sent out more than 400 years ago by Copernicus and Galileo. Yet apparently many of you did not take notice. I suppose it got lost in all the many things you have to keep up with. Believe me, I know how that is. I too have a lot to manage. Billions of galaxies, each with billions of suns called stars, black holes, keeping the Earth on its axis and your feet on the ground as the Earth spins at 1,000 miles per hour. Then there are the seasons to manage, and the twice-daily tides that keep rising, and reminding birds where and when to fly, photosynthesis, etc. You know these things because it is your species that has named them all, even as you have named me, Wisdom Within the Universe. Thanks for that. You've done a great job with your naming. Now about my new change of address. My old address was Supreme Judge Outside the Universe at heaven.com. Most of you were familiar with that old address. It was used for centuries. My new address is Wisdom Within the Universe at humanheart.com. Please make the changes in your address book. I will no longer be checking messages at the old address, and I do desire to keep in touch, as I know you do. We need each other. You cannot do without me, nor I you. Partners we are. Co-creators of the future we are. Now a few words about the preferred new name, Wisdom Within the Universe. Though I will still respond to all the names you have created for me over the tens of thousands of years, including gods, goddesses, spirit, Zeus, Buddha mind, greater self, and more recently, God, I actually delight when you create new names. I must say that the name God has lost most of its pizzazz for me. So many things have been done using that name and under that flag, things not very wise, atrocities that have caused me great grief. That three-letter word has been so literalized and domesticized, commercialized, politicized, and militarized that frankly I cringe a little when I hear it. The name, God, was once a helpful name when you were little and young. But now that you have grown up, you may want to put it on the shelf for a few generations while it recovers from its overuse and abuse. New names show me that your species continues one of your most creative gifts. That is, giving names to all things wherein I reside. All the flowers of the field, the trees, the aforementioned birds, and those planets and stars, and the sun and the moon. And you have named all those arenas of knowledge about me. Cosmology, biology, anthropology, neurology, psychology, theology. There's so much of me that you have discovered and honored, and so much more to come. Where would we be if your species had not undertaken your primary mission of seeing, of wondering, of beholding, of looking through telescopes and microscopes, of naming what you have seen and experienced? Why, it would be as if nothing of me existed if you had not borne witness. Keep it up. You haven't seen anything yet. And as I just mentioned, I delight in new names because I am so diverse and many-sided and multidimensional, and I dread above all being boxed in or treated like an object or a possession. Though I honor your intent, I've never been comfortable with the phrases, our God, or my God. It makes me feel like an object, a possession, rather than a subject to be related to. And relationship is my greatest desire and your greatest need. You can never have too many names for all my mysteries. I love it when your poets speak about me. For instance, when they let their imagination soar and say things about me like, you are the future, the red sky before sunrise over the fields of time. You are the cock's crow when night is done. You are the dew and the bells of matins, maiden, stranger, mother, death. You create yourself in ever-changing shapes that rise from the stuff of our days, unsung, unmourned, undescribed like a forest we never knew. You are the deep innerness of all things, the last word that can never be spoken. Oh my, music to my celestial ears, how I love your beautiful words. Just remember, words are your invention, not mine. Enjoy them. Use them to unite, not to divide, to build bridges, not walls. Don't weaponize them, for they can be lethal. And do not worship the words you have created, especially your religious ones. Yes, I know you are inclined to attribute your religious words and sacred texts to me, to give them more supposed authority and power, and to compete with other religious and political tribes. and to win unnecessary and unwinnable religious arguments. That is not helpful, nor very wise. It has caused too much grief for too many years. So please use your beautiful bodies, your sharp minds, and your rich imaginations to come up with a better way to partner with me in co-creating the future. Access wisdom which you have inherited as an organic part of the natural world that has stored my wisdom for the ages. And you are rooted in that wisdom, like beautiful, strong trees are rooted in the earth from which you too sprang and to which you will return. All words are like the flowers of the field that bloom beautifully, then wither and die and return to the earth to serve as fertilizer for the next new season or the next generation. If you do need only one word to replace the tired, abused word, God, simply use the one I am borrowing from your lexicon for this email, wisdom. It has a certain mysterious ring to it, and yet it is so earthy. Or even better, you could simply call me by one of your most familiar names, life. Well, that is what I am. I am. I like that one too. I am life itself in all of its mixture, colors and shades, visible and invisible, cosmological life, biological life, anthropological life, sociological life, psychological life, religious life. There I go again, borrowing your wonderful human names. Although it is necessary for me to refer to the pronoun I when I'm speaking with you, I am not a being, nor a larger version of you. I'm not a he, nor a she, nor an it. I am an experience of life, first and foremost, encountered first by your body, followed by your mind and your imagination. Body, mind, and imagination. They are your most important trinity. They are your sacred organs of knowing me and honoring me and sharing me. Trust not any religion or religious trinity that denies, devalues, or tries to bypass the human body, for it is your most sensitive instrument to detect my presence. Sadly, its neglect over the centuries has caused much unnecessary suffering, because when it is denied, it causes people to behave badly, sometimes very badly. Now, regarding emails, many of you have sent urgent messages in the past weeks asking me to intervene in the decisions related to your Supreme Court. Let me say as an aside, I find that inflated name a little humorous. Supreme. As the wisdom of the universe, I chuckle every time I hear it. Be that as it may, nearly half of your urgent messages wanting me to intervene in one way, and the other half wanting me to do the opposite. That often is the case in your urgent messages for my intervention into your human affairs. I am sure that you can see that this puts me in a no-win situation. And again, I don't like to be boxed in as anyone's favorite. Now let me say clearly and kindly, that is not my job. It is not my job to clean up the messes of your own making. You made the mess, and you need to take the responsibility to clean it up. I'm not your parent, neither father nor mother, and I'm not on call to clean up your rooms. You're no longer children, though it was necessary once upon a time for you to frame our relationship that way. Those old images are no longer helpful. Let them go, along with the security blankets and stuffed animals of your childhood. Clean up your messes, using the wisdom already available within life within you, within each other. That includes your bigger messes, like racial and gender inequality, and unjust political systems and wars. I don't need to intervene as if from the outside. I'm already with you from the beginning. Never left, never will. I do all my work from the inside out, not the outside in. That way we can work together. But you do have to do your part. And while I'm on this topic, please stop crediting me with helping you to win ball games and other sporting events while the loser's weak, or crediting me with helping you to find a parking place at the mall, or finding the right mate for you on Match.com. It makes me look partial to some and not others, and makes you look kind of silly. So please stop sending those messages. They just fill up my inbox. Now I'm sure this raises the whole topic of prayer and what it means. If you want, I will address that in a subsequent email. In the meantime, remember that you have access to all the wisdom, our common wisdom, that you need to live creatively and compassionately and to move life along as long unfolding. I know that you keep looking for the doorway to wisdom outside yourselves in all kinds of places and all kinds of isms like fundamentalism and literalism and dogmatism. Those doorways will not lead you to the wisdom we share. They only divide and feed God greed, the illusion that there is not enough for me to go around. I do not know where that fake news started, but please stop spreading it around. It's not true, and it has caused too much bloodshed over the years. The doorway to my wisdom is close at hand. It's an inner doorway. You will locate the wisdom deep within, underneath your fears and prejudices, and your need to be right, and your need to win at all costs. You're better than that. You're wiser than that. You're more creative than that. You're more courageous than that. So go into your fears and through them, and just on the other side is that secret passageway. Enter there, and you will come to a beautiful meadow, out beyond right and wrong, beyond winning and losing, beyond red states and blue states, beyond liberal and conservative, beyond all the divisions of your making. I will meet you there, in that deep inner place, and we can converse, and we can decide how to go back into the outer world to create a less conflicted, less terror-filled life together. We need to do so. We must do so. We can do so. You and I working together. So, carve out time and space to go within your beautiful, sacred selves. Locate that narrow doorway that leads to that beautiful meadow. I am waiting for you there. Yours truly, Wisdom Within the Universe at humanheart.com. So really, that's all I had to say. And already more than I fully understand. But since we have allotted more time, I will add some commentary, since I am never lost for words. You see, my professional life is moving words around. Looking within words and finding additional words to describe the previous words. I'm part Irish, and we have the attitude, why bother using one word when you can use 10? It reminds me that, broadly speaking, there are two categories of people. There are those who delight in numbers, and there are those who delight in words. Those who gravitate toward numbers are mathematicians and physicists and accountants and bankers and corporate execs and Wall Street watchers and workers. They love numbers and spreadsheets and the so-called bottom line. They spend their days moving numbers around. And then there are those who gravitate toward words. Teachers, poets, writers, philosophers, psychologists, preachers, lawyers, politicians. This second group of folks spend their days moving words around. looking within words and searching for new words to describe the previous words. Yes, since I'm a teacher, writer, psychologist, I'm right there with the lawyers and the politicians. Questionable company, indeed. Both categories of folks, numbers people and words people, are essential for culture. Both are of great value, yet invariably one group gets impatient with the other. The numbers folk are satisfied with the bottom line and get impatient with words folks who always want to look beneath the bottom line to examine the values they're under and to talk about those values. On the other hand, let's see if I can get my next page of words. The opposite is true. Words people are often suspect of numbers people who simply want to get on with whatever there is to be gotten along with. We are a wonderfully complex, weird species. No wonder it is taking us so long to learn to live together. Now, the point of this little homespun psychological typology is this. First, being a words person, it validates my need to keep on talking. And I will also give you an opportunity to express some of your words. That is, unless I get too wrapped up in mine. But secondly, being primarily a words person, I find numbers fascinating, especially large ones. They're often numinous, to use the psychological word. It's an opening for me to the precincts of the holy, the sacred. I am awed by large numbers. Some of you know where I'm going with this, I imagine. For example, it fascinates me that our universe has been unfolding for at least 13.8 billion years, and as wisdom noted in the email, our expansive galaxy is but one of billions of galaxies, and each galaxy is home to billions of stars. Can you imagine getting into a rocket ship? All of us here, big rocket ship. And we take off at the blinding speed of 186,000 miles per second. Not per hour, but per second, which is the speed of light. So in less than 2 seconds, we would have reached the moon, the only other celestial body that we have touched by foot. But if we were to set our GPS to traverse the Milky Way, our galaxy, one end to the next, we would continue to travel at 186,000 miles per second, the speed of light, for tens of thousands of years. Now that just gives me the all-overs. You know, I mean, that really is amazing. But then, if we got to the edge of our Milky Way after all those tens of thousands of years at that incredible speed, we would look out, we couldn't see, but we would look out and we would see billions of other galaxies, each with billions of stars. And here we are on this little blue dot in the universe. The only home we have, 4.5 billion years old, so lovely, so precious, and we, its most creative and most destructive species. Rumor has it, perhaps you've heard, that at the annual Animal Species Conference later this year, you know, the one where each of the estimated 16 million extant species of animals, including Homo sapiens, send a representative to talk about common concerns. That conference, you know what I'm talking about. The question this year that will be considered is, should the Homo sapiens species be allowed to continue to exist? Well, the pre-conference polls are showing that the vote may well be 15,999,999 to 1 no. We, the most creative and most destructive of all the species, have much work to do. We can do better. We must do better. We are the only species that can choose its extinction or not, and we still haven't made that choice. So where can we look for help? Our monotheistic religions? Unlikely. Our current politics? Surely not. An Armageddon ending with a messianic return? I personally doubt it. I think that solution is wishful thinking and a religious delusion, one of the many dangers of literalism and fundamentalism. The Armageddon battle, projected into the future, is a mirror of what is going on right now within each of us, between political parties and nations, as the capacities and powers for creativity and destruction within each of us are vying for manifestation. Of course, we wish there were some future bailout. That way we would not have to be responsible for our actions and decisions and our policies toward each other and our global nest. Many religious folks that tend to be on one end of the spectrum are counting on that bailout. So climate change and the poisoning of our seas is of little concern. Of course, in my fundamentalist upbringing that I referred to in the opening paragraph, heaven and the afterlife was always much more important than this life. This life was just sort of like a prelude to get there. We have to change that. We must change that. So Jesus is not coming back to bail us out. That's my personal Christology. Jesus is not coming back to bail us out. He and other prophets and wisdom teachers left us with their solutions the first time around. We have access to all the wisdom we need. We need the imagination, the courage, and the will to access it. We have work to do, and we cannot leave to our children and grandchildren a difficult, scary task that we were unwilling to tackle. No, we will not complete the task in our lifetime, but that does not exempt us of our call to try, however small our contribution may seem. For me, that task means bringing fresh imagination to the meanings of God and religion, meanings I think that underlie all else. It's our views and attitudes towards God and religion, conscious and unconscious, that provide the power and the fuel for all else. If those views and attitudes are less than life-giving, they will be life-diminishing and death-dealing. Now, one additional large, fascinating number to place our topic of God and religion in its larger context. If we were to place our 13.8 billion year cosmic calendar on our 12-month calendar, and we were to wait for the appearance of our species, this is what we would discover. And to my amazement each time I repeat this, which is often, beginning with January 1 as our starting place to calculate 13.8 billion years, it would be 11:53 p.m., December the 31st, 7 minutes before the end of the calendar year, before we would appear as a self-aware species, gifted with this amazing faculty called consciousness and imagination. 7 minutes before the end of the year. And in those most recent 7 minutes, we began to create language and tools and cultures. Only then did we begin to wonder about the mysterious universe and our possible role in it. Only in the most recent minutes did we begin to tell stories about our experiences with the mysteries all around and the visible and invisible forces that we encounter. Slowly we began to name things, visible and invisible, including the names gods, goddesses, spirits, etc., and we created and named our religions. Now in the most recent 7 seconds, not minutes now, we're down to seconds. In the most recent 7 seconds on this cosmic calendar did we create our oldest major religion, Hinduism. In the most recent 5 seconds did we create Buddhism. Only in the most recent 4 seconds did Jesus live and Christianity was birthed. and Islam in the most recent 3.5 seconds. Only in the last second of this cosmic calendar did we discover that our tiny Earth was not the center of the universe, nor flat, but revolved around the sun. And finally, only in the last 1/2 second did we discover that our galaxy was but one of billions more. And finally, only in the last, I think it's 1/4, let's see. Yeah. Only in the last 1/4 second, the most recent 1/4 of second, of the last second, have we discovered something that we call the unconscious and depth psychology, thanks to Freud, Carl Gustav Jung, and some lesser-known mentors. And I propose that discovery is potentially a much-needed watershed moment for our species and our future, because it has radically altered the way we think about deities and devils, about religions and their origin and their purpose, about the meaning of revelation and sacred text, and about the meaning of that forgotten word in the modern world, soul. Soul, psyche, the Greek word for soul. Psychology, the study of soul. Analytical psychology offers us a much-needed update on the monotheistic religions, Judaism, Christianity, and Islam, and the image of God at their core. And I propose that update is long overdue. I sometimes think about this in terms of our cell phones. Your cell phone, like mine, probably occasionally get this notice that the iOS needs to be updated. I have no idea what that means. But I press the right button and something happens. I did look it up a few months ago now, and it's called the internal operating system. It's a good thing. So I transferred that to our religious attitudes. We need to update our iOS, our internal operating system, religiously. It's imperative that we do this. I don't know what would happen with my phone if I didn't choose to update. I'll ask somebody else who's one of those mathematicians, numbers kind of people, later. I don't understand those things. But we need to update our iOS, and depth psychology, analytical psychology, which is Jung's word for depth psychology, can help us. Because the primary monotheistic image of a God as a supernatural being outside the universe who intervenes from time to time to accomplish His divine will, including choosing a particular tribe to carry out that will, complete with exclusive sacred texts that can never be altered and that are applicable to all time, to all people, that image of God must be declared extinct. Let me say it this way, with a sense of psychological urgency. As long as our deities and devils are perceived to be beyond the physical world, in a metaphysical domain, and beyond the human psyche, we will continue to do great harm to each other, to our global nest, and to ourselves. This conclusion is validated by the findings of depth psychology over the last 75 to 100 years, as well as the long and bloody history of theistic and monotheistic religions, which continues to this very present moment. I'm addressing primarily the three major monotheisms, Judaism, Christianity, Islam. Although those polytheistic religions which perceive deities and devils to reside in a metaphysical domain and beyond the human psyche are included too. Furthermore, because of the unholy marriage of monotheism and the politics of power over the centuries, the monotheistic myth gradually extended its reach and has served as a collective worldwide myth, for better or worse, consciously and unconsciously. I believe this to be true for those who identify themselves as religious, non-religious, spiritual, agnostic, or atheist. The monotheistic God image has ruled not only the heavens for more than 4,000 years, but gradually large swaths of the collective human psyche, consciously and unconsciously. In God we trust, one nation under God, are but two subtle ways the monotheistic God image is imprinted on the Western psyche and then exported to the world. Now, initially, the externalization, as it were, the exportation of our deities and devils was necessary at one point in the unfolding of consciousness. It was absolutely necessary. But failure to recognize those exportations as aspects of the human soul seen in projected forms has manifested in centuries of pathology. Our ancestors saw certain images in external form. Those images were projected onto the heavens and onto the trees and so on. But the failure to see those as projection, I think, has manifested in centuries of pathology. The psychological law is this. Let me illustrate it this way. The psychological law seems to be thus. When deities and devils are perceived to be external to life, we are tempted to import the deified qualities as personal possessions or belonging to those of our kind, our tribe, while exporting the devilish qualities to enemies near and far, enemies who then must be converted, defeated, or eliminated. Or to say it another way, using psychological language, when the human capacities for good and evil, creativity and destruction remain exported to a metaphysical domain and assigned to supernatural deities or devils, the human shadow remains outside and unintegrated. Monotheism and certain strains of polytheism have provided a safe haven for the human shadow in all of its valences, both destructive and constructive. Now, as we know, the three major monotheisms are referred to as revealed religions, meaning that they owe their beginnings and authority to revelations from that external supernatural deity, given directly to founders and or prophets. And with those supposed direct revelations from a one and only God, come a sense of being the one and only divinely chosen religious tribe, complete with supposed privileges and powers and sacred texts applicable and authoritative to all for all time. So, revelation, understood as a metaphysical, hierarchical, patriarchal process, has permitted any individual or religious group to validate any human agenda, for better or worse, and arguably the latter has predominated. But with the advent of analytical psychology over the last century, revelation can now be appreciated for its deeper and more hopeful meanings. Rather than unveiling the mind of an external deity, rather than unveiling the mind of a metaphysical deity, religions and their God images reveal the yet-to-be-owned aspects of the human unconscious seen in projected forms. When I start slurring my words, I imagine it's probably time for me to slow down or stop speaking. The Irish in me wants to keep going. We'll go a few more minutes. It is true that revealed religions are indeed revelatory. They necessarily reveal the level of consciousness of their prophets and founders and members of the religious tribe. That's what our sacred texts reveal. They reveal the human mind and imagination. They do not reveal the mind of an external God. In addition, monotheistic religions were and are attempts to validate tribal histories, tribal hopes and longings, and attempts to compete with rival religions for power, land, resources, and resources of the faithful. Read the Old Testament. There's a lot of good things about the Bible. There's a lot of good poetry in the Bible. There's a lot of bad prose. And there's a lot of really bad history. So we have to be more differentiating when we embrace these, quote, sacred texts. For the psychologically minded, religions and their attendant God images and myths and dogmas reveal the contents and dynamics of the unconscious psyche, or in poetic language, the contents of the human heart. That's why we need to spend a lot more resources trying to understand the human mind and imagination, rather than continuing to try to understand the mind of God. Yet religions do continue to spend an inordinate amount of time and ink seeking to understand the mind of God. Our seminaries need to change that around, I think. Fast forwarding to the present moment, from that time tens of thousands of years ago, when our species had this first awareness. This is what happened in my imagination. A long time ago, some people think it's like 100,000 years. I've seen recently 200,000 years, when our species became self-aware. That is, our species, over time, suddenly, so to speak, had the capacity to stand beside itself and to reflect on nature and the nature of one's own nature, self-awareness. And from that moment, whenever it happened, what we discovered as a species was that we were a vital part of some mysterious universe that we did not create, we can't control nor command. That is the basic religious experience. And from that basic religious experience 100,000 years ago to this very present moment, our primary religious experience are those experiences where we have this experience that we are in the presence of something that we did not create, we can't control nor command. And from that set of experiences, all of our religions have emanated. And that continues to this very present moment. Eight minutes. Take a breath. 8 minutes. And then I want to hear some of your words. At the heart of monotheism dwells a pathological delusion of being chosen. And that pathological delusion must be named before our species can co-create, at the initiative of the deep unconscious, a more inclusive and life-affirming religious myth. Though begun as a necessary projected image, that delusion has been hidden and perpetuated in religious tribalism. The attitude that one's immediate group is superior to all others and must be preserved at all costs. That's what drives us underneath all this business of institutions and hierarchies and dogs and all that. Our tribe, our institution must be preserved at all costs. So generations of Jews, Christians, and Muslims have been taught, consciously and unconsciously, that its tribe is the chosen tribe, the favored religious children of a one and only supernatural deity, and therefore is superior to all others. And that delusion breeds three pathologies. Narcissism, followed by paranoia, and invariably culminating in scapegoating and aggression. Narcissism, we are number one. Paranoia, we have to be suspect of everybody else if we are the number one and that deity is our God. And culminating in scapegoating, we have to find somewhere to put our less than good stuff, and aggression. If you listen closely, I have just described Donald Trump's 3 pathologies: narcissism, paranoia, and aggression or scapegoating. I'm going to be talking later that it's not just Donald Trump's problem, because it's just a symptom. It's a symptom of our collective stuff that we have refused to look at for centuries. And primarily it's refusal to look at this pathology underlying Judaism, Christianity, and Islam that promotes this narcissistic notion of paranoia and scapegoating. This core delusion has manifested in what I believe is accurately described as monotheistic madness. While not a diagnosis found in the DSM manuals, the religious, social, political, and psychological symptoms of this deadly virus are so obvious as to be overlooked for centuries. Upping the ante, and then I'll stop for a moment. Upping the ante, the oft-expressed monotheistic declaration that with God all things are possible. How often have we heard that? With God all things are possible. That's true, but not in the sense usually intended. With God on one side, anything has been permissible, even sanctioned. Murder, genocide, genital mutilation, beheading, slavery, torture, jihad, devaluation of women, rape, incest, witch hunts, human sacrifice, bloody crusades and inquisitions, elimination of indigenous cultures, and the gory list goes on, as do the atrocities done in God's name. It's monotheistic madness. We have to name it if we're going to get beyond it. And we might add, ignoring or mocking women who are the victims of sexual harassment and abuse. All coming from some kind of permission, as it were, because certain gender in this culture has some kind of superior feeling, male priority. So our daily news around the world is a litany of horrors, many of which are disguised as being faithful to some religious tribe or the privileged recipients of some promises made to religious ancestors. The Middle East continues its monotheistic blood spilling over a small strip of land supposedly promised to religious ancestors and claimed by rival religious tribes. The land called holy has stayed wet with religious blood and tears for centuries, and will continue until the religious pathology is faced, I think. But here in the West, with religious conviction, it is supposed that America was and is especially ordained and blessed by the one and only God, making us the last best hope for the world because of American exceptionalism, which Obama refused to say. Our money bears the stamp "In God We Trust" as we take more money from social programs and the poor to build up an already inflated military budget. We pray for peace while being the biggest arms dealer in the world and bragging about 110 billion arms deal with Saudi Arabia right now. In God we trust? Which God is that? The political frenzy to make America great again, with its chief strategy of America first, is an unconscious or barely conscious manifestation of religious tribalism and the religious pathology under our examination. Furthermore, to the non-reflective person, it all seems so necessary to defeat enemies who also justify their existence with religious conviction. The last paragraph, I think we are reaping the harvest of 4,000 years of leaving our deities and devils exported to the remote regions of heaven and hell. Because history validates the aforementioned tendency to import and identify with the deity and its supposed goodness and power, while assigning all evil first to a personified devil, and then to outer others, whether individuals or nations. Self-proclaimed atheist Sam Harris sounds the alarm, which should wake us from our religious slumber. Our world is way too small to wait to see how bad the idea of God can get. Or my version of that, our world is way too small, our weapons way too many and lethal, our politics and religions way too divisive for us to keep quiet and hope that some outside intervention will save us. With the instruments of our own suicide not so safely buried underground and more on the way, and with political leaders regularly invoking God bless America or the rival Allah Akbar, it may be that we have already waited too long to avoid major catastrophes to our species and to our environment. We can't keep offering prayers instead of new policies. We can't keep invoking illusory external gods and ignore the immanent divine wisdom built into the life itself and accessed through our bodies, minds, and imagination. And so for these reasons and many more, the last sentence, as long as our deities and devils are perceived to be beyond the physical world, in a metaphysical domain, and beyond the human psyche, I think we will continue to do great harm to ourselves, to each other, and to our global nest. Emerging from a tribal mentality and sustained over the centuries by tribalism, the three major monotheisms, Judaism, Christianity, and Islam, have not, likely cannot, grow beyond their present forms to a more global mentality, since to do so would be tantamount to their death. Here's the paradox of the good news. The monotheistic myth and the God image at its core have already died. And that's where I'll pick up later.